You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
HRN is food radio supported by you. Learn more at heritageradionetwork.org.
This episode is brought to you by Wisconsin Cheese. There's a reason when you think of Wisconsin, you think cheese. Cheese is a huge part of Wisconsin's history and future. In Wisconsin, the state of cheese, the tradition of cheese-making excellence began 180 years ago, before Wisconsin was recognized as a state. Immigrants traveled to settle in this lush green hills of Wisconsin, bringing their cheese-making traditions with them. These storied skills, combined with the freshest milk available, created a cheese-making culture that is uniquely Wisconsin. Wisconsin's 1,200 cheesemakers, many of whom are third and fourth generation, continue to pass on old world traditions while adopting modern innovations in cheese-making craftsmanship. Find your next favorite cheese at wisconsincheese.com.
Hi, I'm Peter Reinhardt, and welcome to Pizza Quest. We're joined today by Dr. Marc Cooper, award-winning consultant, futurist, and leader. That's a direct quote from his bio, and the author of Older to Elder, The Thinking and Being of a Contemporary Elder. Now, I'm not going to say much more about you, Marcus. I'm going to let you tell us your journey. This is a perfect example of where we've been headed with Pizza Quest, is the focus really on quest. And if there's anybody who embodies the principle of quest, it's you, because you have been on a journey. And I'd love for you to kind of catch our listeners up with a little bit about that journey, where you started and how you ended up as the author of Older to Elder.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. Welcome.
I always appreciate the opportunity to talk about this particular phenomenon called elder, rather than the description that people usually hold it as. So, actually, Pete, I'd like to start where I am rather than go back 80 years. It's just that it's been perfect, and it's been long, and it's had all the things that life has had.
It's like the long, strange trip of the Grateful Dead, right?
Yeah, and it's also fits the axiom that if you see your steps clearly on the path, it's the wrong path. I mean, I have no idea how I ended up here is the truth. I ended up here.
That's right. You're here.
I went through what I went through, and the people that attracted me, I don't know why they attracted me, but there was something about who they were being that said, boy, if I had some of that, if I could be that in life, then so I followed that path as well. Yeah, so I think we have a chance.
Well, just to provide some context for our listeners, you had a very successful life as a medical practitioner. I believe you were in the dental field, correct?
I'll give you the thumbnail.
All right, okay, give us a thumbs up so that they understand that we're talking about a journey trip here.
Let me work it backwards and then tell me when you want me to stop, because I can go back to infancy. So I'll just go that way. So I was a dentist, and then I was a specialist in dentistry. And then I was an academician in the school that taught that. And I also had a practice in Bellevue, Washington. And during that time, I had a parallel track, which was self-awareness, consciousness, understanding myself. My life fulfilled my parents' wishes, but it wasn't fulfilling mine.
Exactly.
And so at some point I did some work, and then that opened up another door, and that opened up another door. And I found myself helping my brethren dentists to be able to deal with stuff that comes with any small business, which is people and all that. So I created a program called the Mastery of Practice, and that exploded. And then I had consultants, and then I had all this. But it also led me to change. And then I got into hospitals and hospital systems and insurance companies and federal and state governments. And I got into all the healthcare world. And then I got into COVID. And I was with some amazing people during those 2 years that really, because of my science and background, really stimulated me understanding the disease process once again. And then I saw what also was happening in medicine was the consolidation of all the resources and assets, because that's where I was working, and I saw it would happen in dentistry. And then my entrepreneur streak buzzed on, and I created an entity called the Dental Entrepreneur Organization for small entities of a couple locations to grow into these large things. And when I started it, it was at 3%. Now dentistry is delivered by 80% of that.
Oh.
And it happens in over a decade. And in 2017, I sold that business to a really good guy who really wanted to take it there. And I was doing some work, and I decided to put together a group of people, and I was called the group Seeking Wisdom. And these were people like you, actually. If I would have known you, I would have invited you.
I wish I could have been, yeah.
Yeah, and we started talking about what does the world really need? And make it so it works for people. I mean, what really is missing? And the first thing that I noticed was, because of the work I had done with Aboriginal and Native American elders, as well as Jewish elders, there was something that was missing in our culture, and that was wisdom. And if the wisdom were here, how would it impact how people decide, how people talk, how people get along?
Yeah. Well, this kind of speaks to that parallel track that you were on as you were practicing your day job, so to speak. You were constantly, working on your own personal self-discovery and meeting some really unique, remarkable people and absorbing the wisdom that you're collecting from them. This is separate, totally. Well, not separate, but somehow they all came together to bring us to the present.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good summary.
That's the part that most people don't get, is that, most people we're so focused on what we're doing, what our day job is, so to speak, or our single focus, that we also have another part of our life that you didn't ignore, that many people do ignore, which is self-discovery, and something seems like, as I read your story and your essays, there was something gnawing at you inside that wasn't being fulfilled by your daily day, and you needed to dig deeper and dive deeper to get to that, scratch that itch, whatever it was.
Well, the itch was always there.
Yeah.
I just didn't recognize where it was located. And then,
that's cool.
This needs scratching.
Excellent.
Yeah, but my capacity in discipline and doing a dental practice and doing surgery and doing all of that whole arena, and then being an entrepreneur and designing and developing the wisdom to make that successful and sell it, it all allowed for a particular view that I didn't have before, that I could see that I couldn't see before. How do I, and an experience, really. So for me, it's interesting. Like all things occur in this world, it starts out really slow and then it explodes. So I look at the death trade, I look at the elder trade, I look at my new industry that I'm in. There's people everywhere doing this of some kind. But I feel that they're missing the beat. I think they're doing a great job of having aging be about dying well and coming to grips with what death will be. That's needed. That's absolutely good stuff. But they're not inspiring the population that will be 90 million people in 2050. With 45% of the wealth of this country, where they will have $200 trillion in wealth compared to the $20 trillion of Musk and Amazon, and the amount of power that could reside in that elder community, if it could be developed, could change the world. So that's the game for me. That's the game for me.
Well, one of the things that you did in your search and in your journey was to meet elders and to study with elders and to sit at the feet of elders. But how would you define the term elder? What is an elder, and how is that different from somebody who's older?
Good question.
Oh, thank God. It's all about finding the right question. I just wanted you to know
it's the perfect question, because even elder can be subdivided or go into various ways. There's a phenomenon called distinction. One of my teachers once said, no distinction, no power. And a distinction is not what is known, it's how it is known. And so how I know elder is not, yes, has the characteristics of older people, the hair, the posture, the inability to grasp the name of someone, all that comes with that older. It's cellular, it's cosmic, it's going to happen. It's this part of this older person that could buy into this cultural drama that wasn't written by them about how you get old here. We have a death phobia. So everybody in this culture has a fear, deep-seated, unquestionable fear about dying, because it looks to them as it's going out of existence. That's how it looks. And the ego's involved, and the culture's involved, and all of that. But the way I mean elder, I have a relationship with death that is ally, not enemy. And that changes how I live my life. And that's good for me and good for the people I work with who want to follow this particular way of elder, which has come to, you're going to die. You are going to die. Now, what is that process for you? One of the things that I look at is and I call it a contemporary elder, because you need to have higher wisdom to be an elder. You need to see the more cosmic view of life and people and understand, and you need to be able to hold a lot more. You need to be wise. You need to be sageful. But then the thing that you certainly have developed it, is conventional wisdom. So I know how to get this thing over there in this reality. I know how to do that. So what I define as a contemporary elder has one who has both higher wisdom and conventional wisdom, and is able to apply them appropriately to move what they're doing forward.
You're kind of like a mediator between these two levels of understanding, then.
Well, I said I got into some of your stuff. You use your conventional wisdom to bring higher wisdom to people.
So again, kind of a bridge.
It's a word you could use. I don't know.
A lot of different ways of framing it, right?
Yeah, there is. I think it's a phenomenon. So you talked about me being around elders, and I have been around Aboriginal and Native American elders, and I've been in that presence. And there's something that they generate with the people around them that is more peaceful, that is more loving, that is more quantumous, that is more, I see. There's a space that they create. People get more honest. People get less hostile. There's just, when I looked at Reverend Tutu's reconciliation video and saw that was an elder. That was an elder. He could bring people together in such a way that they could actually communicate and be effective. That's elder. The way I mean elder.
Yeah, an elder that was at least popularly known, but very few people recognized the wisdom of the elder in our presence, in our midst when it was happening. Sometimes we don't seem to realize it until it's too late. They're gone.
Yes to that. And I think it is the responsibility of the way I mean elder to be able to deserve to be listened to.
Yeah.
It's not about the culture and youth orientation and, scientific materialism and all that. I'm from Philly, so I apologize. I sometimes drift into scatologic language. So I'll be, but all this shit that we deal with on a daily basis, and and our politic of the day, and all of that that's going on. Conventional wisdom doesn't work in this very well in terms of emotional stability for people, but higher wisdom does.
So how do you, not everybody has the wherewithal and the initiative that you took to go out there and go after it, to find out, to scratch that itch. So how do you bring what you learned and accumulated to inspire and actually activate that same desire to make that transition to people who haven't had the journey you've had?
I don't bring. So how do you say that was in your verb that you used? I don't do that. I actually follow Gandhi's rule,
which is
be the change you wish to see in the world. Be that.
Be it.
If people see that in you and they feel it's a fit for them, they will come and have a conversation with you because you are representing something or intuitively clinging their bell. Hey man, if I had that I'm 68 years old and it's tough out here. I'm being isolated. I'm being marginalized. I'm being discounted. I'm looked at as something obsolete. I mean, they're dealing with a whole world of pain and suffering, getting old in our culture. That just comes with the territory.
Right.
You can change that. And if they see it in me not succumbing to that, they go, wow, I want that.
Yeah. In other words, you model it, you witness to it, but you don't necessarily, you're not trying to bring something to them. You're just trying to be the thing that you want to bring to the world.
Well, because that's all I can do. I was in business for a long time. 13 books, I think you wrote, and you have done a lot of stuff. And, to bring anything into existence takes intention, attention, commitment, drive, failure, succeeding, all the stuff that goes on.
Yeah.
But you've also managed to contribute in a way to people where it's just a model that they can see, they can understand what you're trying to say through that model.
Yeah.
I think we're all trying to do that.
But in addition to being it, you also wrote a new book, Older to Elder. So by writing a book and kind of what we're consolidating the life lessons and wisdom that you've accrued and accumulated over the years, you are offering something. You're bringing something very tangible.
Yeah. Thank you for the book reference. I wrote a book for three reasons. One is conventional wisdom. Uh-huh. I know that in order to be seen as an authority, you need a book. So, you just can't generate the level of invitation required without the book being the invitational channel. That's the way it works. I've done it in other industries as well.
I see what you mean, yeah.
Okay, so the second part then is getting relationships with people who are working on the same thing you are, because there's nothing ever original on the planet. It's always in existence out there. So I started spending time with people who were really committed to this. There are some people that are working on elder for 20, 30 years now, really good people. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of academies and other eldering things that are going on. So it's a time that's come when others are trying to talk about it. What I feel is able to be done is if we take a look at the 80-20 rule and we take a look at Malcolm Gladwell's tipping point, and we look at all of that. By the end of the decade, we'll be over 65 will be over 21% of the population. We'll have crossed the chasm. We'll be in the major majority. So there are opportunities that are beginning to arise for the consolidation of those over 65. And who was going to lead that consolidation? Well, I've been through this process in healthcare and in other insurance as well. So there is some way, especially with AI now, to be able to rethink and repopulate and aggregate. I have a strong relationship in the Buddhist sphere, and there are people that make sense to me and help me think through things about how I am in this world. And there's a phenomenon called interbeing, and that my understanding is that we're all not just interrelated, we're interbeing. And I think and it's deeper than that. And I feel that if we had 20% of those over 65 being the kind of elder I'm presenting here, that it could influence that whole sphere of older, allowing for a real transformation in the world. So if someone asks me what my job is, Peter, I say my job is to change the world.
There you go. Yeah. And some of the terms that you've used in trying to define that or describe it is, a transformative approach to aging, a transformative approach. And that word transformation, appears a lot in your work and in the work of people that I know that are like you, that are who want to change the world. So what do you think that means? How do you transform the world?
So I'm going to try to explain it in a phenomenologic, I don't think I said that right, event.
Okay.
So it doesn't happen in time. So one of the characteristics of transformation is it doesn't happen time. You here and now. Oh, you're here. It's transformed. It touches an intuitive part of you that has it's the truth. Oh, the whole world changes in that moment, and like that. And who you are is not the same person on the other side. Something changed that allows your perception, your conversations, your internal dialogue, your all that to So transformation is a change of form and content, and more importantly, context. Boom. Oh. So
yeah. It's as you say that, I'm thinking it's like having an aha moment, and then suddenly realizing that you are totally. I think of transformation as a change from one thing into something totally different, and it's kind of that aha moment of you are now no longer the same person you thought you were. You're the same being, but you're not who you thought you were.
And so one of the things I appreciate about the elder as I envision it is there's now a allowance because of age to start to consider things that were looked at by a younger generation as not important, such as spirituality. No one, when you're 48, you don't care. You got to get that promotion, or you have to get the job, or you have to stay competitive, or you have to be at that conference, or there's a litany of things.
Yeah.
But you no longer are bound to that. However, most people have a tendency to reach back into their past to try to figure out their future because that's all they had for 65 years. they don't have a way to think about, well, who am I? If I'm not going to be all of that, who am I going to be now?
Yeah.
And so they're not in that self-reflective conversation enough because they try to stay young on the pickleball court, and that's how they live their lives.
Yeah.
I'm still, look at me. I think that's a waste.
Yeah. And if you haven't made that transition into this new way of seeing yourself, then you're just passing time till the clock runs out.
Yeah, yes, and you're trying to rewind the clock all the time because you don't want it to run out. Yeah, no, it's perfect.
That's it. That's really interesting. So again, what I get from your work, and this is my sort of interpretation of what I've gotten from everything I've read and learned from you, is that the idea is that we kind of have to embrace a whole new mission of purpose and being.
Yes.
And that's the real transformation, is that we now have a new purpose in life, and that purpose is to be an elder. The elder is the mission. Am I getting that right?
You should do my marketing, buddy. You got to make a pizza, an elder pizza.
Let me be your front man.
No, I think it's I have groups that I work with and I am part of that allow me to continue this interaction with myself and with others to actually I am the freest I've ever been in my life. Mm. I have the sense of freedom, unconstrained, and I have still as many responsibilities at 80 as I had at 50. I have kids, I have grandkids, I have money, I deal with the political bullshit. I have all the things to do, but boy, I know as an elder, I have a capacity to relate to the same issues that always were anxiety causing, that are now far less intrusive into how I live my life. And I think, wow, that's elder for me, is having that freedom. It's like, oh, okay, shit happens. And
one thing that seems to be a prerequisite to be an elder is that you have to be, in a sense, older or have lived a life of experience. There's a quote that I saw of yours that says, "Knowledge turns into wisdom when merged with experience." And that's a direct quote from something you wrote. And that makes sense. You got to have the experience to have something to pass on, or at least to give it some gravitas. Otherwise, it's just theoretical.
And as important, you will have external input that will want to counter that growth curve for you because of their relationship of getting old. So that is, you have to be cautious. There's something out there. There's waves. Ageism is a truth in our culture.
Yeah.
So sexism, so is racism, but ageism is the quiet killer. It's like a cardiovascular disease.
Because it kind of gives you the message that you don't matter anymore.
Exactly. Now, who's to say that, and how do you behave if you don't believe that? There's a second part to that. So most of the older work that's being done, as I said, is extraordinary and important and life-affirming, and it's doing good things, expanding the health span and the lifespan. It's doing incredible work. But it isn't getting to the opportunity. An elder, when you're around an Aboriginal elder and you're on the kiva, there's 13 seats and the fire's burning and the stars are out, and their ancestors are welcomed into the kiva so that you have an experience of generations, and you can feel it and you can see it, and and the elder cares about the future of the tribe. Mm-hmm. That's his job. It's not himself that's important. It's, how are we going to take care, be the tribe that we are meant to be, given
and
to
that's
be.
Why the tribe can value that elder, because they recognize that elder is there for the future of the tribe, not for themselves.
Now, how do we do that one?
Well, I guess that's a big part of the work is again changing the context.
Yes.
And I think that the title of your book is so perfect, From Older to Elder, because basically that defines the two contexts, the one that we're trying to get out of and the one that can be transformative.
Yes.
And before we run out of time, there's a couple more things I want to ask you, and one of which is that you mentioned in one of the chapters is the 8 cardinal qualities of a wise leader. Now, you've been around, you've had this sort of journey that's taking you into whether it's Buddhism, shamanistic tribes, Aboriginal Judaism, everywhere, Hindu. You've been everywhere. You've lived the journey. And obviously have identified some universals, what maybe I would call universal truths. Is that what these 8 cardinal qualities are, kind of like one way of consolidating some of those learnings into?
I'm trying to bridge conventional wisdom with higher wisdom. So the language may be a little bit awkward, but
I like it though. I like the fact that you were able to identify out of the universals something that applies to everybody, regardless of what their background is.
Martin Luther King once said, until the laws of man match the laws of God, they won't have effect. Mm. I think there are cosmic laws that you don't screw around with. They're forever. They're eternal. Yeah. Integrity being one, responsibility being another. The pronoun is never I. Mm. In any of the leadership verbiage. If you really listen to a leader, there's no I. What's cardinal? There's no today. It's very difficult to find good leadership, what I consider, because it doesn't change people. It makes them work to get outcomes. Mm-hmm. So the world turns out the way it turns out. A good leader changes people. A good leader sees the higher self over there and speaks to that. A good leader sees the future in that other person. He sees legacy. He sees, okay. Mm-hmm. A good leader is an elder.
A good leader is an elder. Yeah, that's right. As you said that, as you were saying that, it reminded me of something I read in Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, which was a very important book in my own journey, because he identifies what he calls the 5 levels of leadership. And the level 5, the highest level, is unlike level 4, which is about talent and charisma. Level 5 was about everything you just described. It's about putting the well-being of the company before your own purpose, your own aggrandizement, and in a sense, it can boil down to the word humility.
Yeah. So when you grow old, of which I have the privilege to do.
And hopefully everyone who's listening will one day be able to do it.
Yes, everybody, I'm sure will. Now, I'm working on it. I am having an interview with someone whose intent is to have people live to 100. Uh-huh. Okay, so that's wonderful. But I know the experience of people who are, once you hit the exit door from your career, it's a one-way. You can't get back in. You can't get back in. And so you mentioned this, where I think your work actually could be really expanded into. Don't mean to be pushy, but it's those people. First of all, the people don't listen to younger people because they don't trust them. And the younger people look at the older people like, what do you know? What do you know? So having people who have been on purpose their entire world, school and college and degrees and job and career moves and yes and no's and the bad times and the good, all that. Now they're purposeless. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so they do what everybody does. They do what I call the Hollywood honeymoon. Let's do what I've always wanted to do 16 months. Yeah. So 4 visits with the grandkids.
Bucket list.
He's played enough golf to not believe it.
Yeah.
He's talking to his friends and having drinks on Tuesday nights with the boys. And all of a sudden, he just realizes there's an emptiness here that I don't know what that is. And I'm saying from my viewpoint, the sooner we can fill the void with a higher purpose, because conventional purpose will not work now. You're done. The past, it's over. It's complete. You can't go back. You don't have your little. You've been in enough hotels where your little key doesn't work and you have to go back to the front desk.
Yeah.
You can't go back to the front desk here. You have to look. So where do I look?
Yeah.
How do I look? How do I figure this out? I think that's the work that I have to do with people. It's like, okay, let's see because I know the most interesting part of all this is that when you start to dig into mine for higher wisdom, it's internal. You can't get there from outside in. So the capacity to really get to your higher wisdom is you got to become self-reflective. You have to look at what's covering that over, what's hiding that, what's suppressing that. And then when people start to see the light, they go, oh man, I can do this. As soon as they say that, I can do this, then all that stuff of the culture about obsolete and no good and who cares, all that kind of gets really small because now they have a mission.
Yeah, mission. And I think that's the key. For those of you who are just joining us, we're talking with Dr. Marc Cooper. Now, when you look up his name on Amazon, it's M-A-R-C, because there are other Marc Coopers that have written books, and it'll take you to some, other interesting, almost similar, different topics, but, good books. But Marc C. Cooper, the book is Older to Elder. And I think, you use the phrase in one of your chapters, you're on the El Camino del Anciano Sabio, if I'm saying it right, which is what, the road to ancient wisdom?
Yes.
And
because that's,
and that's really what you're inviting. You're inviting people to join you on that road.
Exactly.
And I really appreciate the fact that you're doing it. How can, aside from reading the book, are there any more specific? Again, we'll have to just kind of bring it to a close with this, and I'd love to get you back on again in our next season and talk more, because I want to talk about your work with Zalman Schachter, who was somebody I also studied with briefly, and other people where our paths have got to overlap. But we don't have time for all that today. But how can people participate in this journey, in this transition from older to elder?
Number one, they're already looking. So something's here. You'll have a tingle. Oh, okay. Now the website is www.requestingwisdom.com.
Requestingwisdom.com.
So you have enough background in communication and conventional wisdom to know that a request is asking for a commitment. So these people who are looking already have some level of commitment to moving into a world where elder is possible rather than just older. And if they go there, they can take them to my author's website. It will take them to all the stuff.
And your website is Dr. Marc B. Did I say C? It's Marc B. Cooper. .com.
There's a lot of Coopers.
I said Marc C, but it's Marc B. Cooper.
There's a lot of Coopers out there.
By Marc with a C. But
Marc with a B, my mom. Yeah. What can I blame Sadie? She put that B right in the middle.
Okay. So, Marc, I definitely want to continue this conversation with you in the future. We're just scratching the surface of everything that that you've done and that what you want to share, with people out there. But I think ultimately, if I were to put it in a bottom line takeaway, it's join the mission. Those of you who are in the process of this transition in that middle part of your life to the later part of your life, join the mission of becoming an elder and not just growing older.
My new marketing man, Peter, Exactly.
Are you going to be doing any kind of appearances or doing?
I'm gonna put together a webinar. I think it's coming up, and I we'll see about that. I'm going to be doing a retreat down here, and I live in Mexico half time.
Nice.
Okay. Yes.
Were you down in the Baja?
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. Well.
And you will come and join us.
I'd love to. Wow.
Okay. And it's I think it's February. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay.
So what I'm doing is people are coming to me and making requests.
You're not doing.
Exactly. Yes. So I'm here.
I'm getting it. I'm starting to get it, Mark.
You got it, man. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Again, the book is Older to Elder by Dr. Marc B. Cooper. And read it, join the mission, and thank you all for joining us on Pizza Quest. Remember, it's not just about the pizza, it's more about the quest. And I think today we've really been focusing in on the quest. Next time, maybe we could talk pizza too. Since you're from Philly, like me, I'm sure we have a couple of common places that we can brag about.
Let's not talk about that. We'll be here another half hour.
There you go.
All right.
Mark, thank you again for being part of this conversation today. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode. Now, this is our final episode of this season. We're going to take a little break, and we're going to come back with all new episodes in the coming year. And we'll see you on Pizza Quest. Thank you.
Pizza Quest is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.